everyone. Welcome to Black Girl Joy. I am super excited to have you. Just a little inside baseball that Facebook glitched tonight. I will repost this on Facebook. So if you see it later, it will be reposted on Facebook. But thank you for joining us. We are continuing our celebration of women for Women's History Month, and today is International Women's Day. And so to join us today, I have the one and only Miss Kandra. I'm going to bring her in. We are going to be talking about your hero's journey. Your hero's journey. So let me bring her in right now. While I do, please like, share, subscribe, follow, connect, do all the things in all the places. Welcome, Miss Kandra, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be here, especially on International Women's Day.
Yes.
Right. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So I invited Kandra here because she has such a story to tell, right? She's gone through her journey. She's still on her journey, right? But
Yes.
she's gone through a journey. She's a published author, and one of her books is From Food Stamps to Favor. From Food Stamps to Favor. And I wanted her to come on to talk about your hero's journey because I couldn't think of anyone else better to address this topic. So tell us just a little bit about yourself, Kandra.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Crescent City, Florida. So most people's like, where's that? So that's in between Jacksonville and Orlando. We're actually closer to Orlando, like maybe like an hour outside of Orlando. Very rural area. We have 1.5 traffic lights. My graduating class maybe had 120 graduates. And so I grew up in a single parent home. My mom raised 5 kids as a single mom. And she always taught us that down was not our destiny. And she gave us 2 options. You're either going to go to college or go in the military. So I decided I'd go to college. And it was just this amazing thing that happened with me. When she gave me the ultimatum, all of us got the ultimatum. I just decided that, I like writing, because I wasn't as strong in math. So, usually when people are strong in math, they stay over in that science and STEM area. Or if they're strong in writing, they end up in communications or marketing or some type of field related to advertising or, journalism or what have you. And that's exactly what happened for me. And writing became such an amazing, I call it my superpower. When I pick up my pen, I call it my weapon. And it has really been such a journey of healing, a journey of hope, a journey of recovery. And I've been in rooms and in spaces because writing has been just that for me in academia, in my professional career, but it has mainly allowed me to heal. So my writing started through journaling, my passion.
All right. So you have this book, From Food Stamps to Favor.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So that was probably, I think, like in 2012, I started writing this book. And nobody writes a memoir when they're getting ready to turn 40. But I was like, let me go on and write this book because it had been on my heart. And it was really filled with so many life lessons and things that I learned from working in corporate America, things that I learned from my mom, being a single mom, raising us, God-fearing, and just her tenacity and all these life lessons of loving yourself and loving your neighbor and serving people. And so I wanted to allow my legacy to be that on with pen and parchment. And so I began to write and share my experiences of being in a newsroom and just all of these, I like to call them divine encounters that I had, that these were a part of my ultimate destiny. And then when I got to a portion of the book where I had to confront, why am I wired the way that I'm wired? It was actually a moment where I had to have this moment of truth with myself and share the childhood sexual abuse that I had endured between the ages of 5 and 7, somewhere around there. And I often say 5 and 7 because I can't remember exactly how old I was. But when I look back at pictures, I can look and know that it was around that time. And so it allowed me to just really park and unpack that, in one chapter, and just releasing that pain, and understanding that, what happened to me was not my fault, and I was not guilty, and that I deserved to be handled with care as a child, and no child should, have to carry the burden of keeping a secret like that, and understanding that if you told, that it could literally, unravel your life, your home, and everything like that. And so as I began to share food stamps to favor and becoming a first generation college graduate, another book came to me, Don't You Dare Touch Me There. And that was my first children's book. And that was like the reconciliation. After I told my truth, it was almost like, so what you gonna do about it? And I never forget, I was watching an evening newscast at the same station where I interned. And the anchor came on and said the Florida legislature was passing a bill that would allow sexual abuse prevention to be taught in schools. And I clearly heard, Don't You Dare Touch Me There. And in about an hour, I wrote what I thought would be a poem. And the next day, I saw a post where someone said, if you're writing a children's book, let me know. And at that moment, I heard like, oh, it's going to be a children's book. Because I was really like going to share that family reunions, maybe with church or something. But it was so much bigger, and it literally took off.
Awesome. So the reason, I hope you're starting to understand why I invited Kandra here, is because we all have a hero's journey, and we're all telling ourselves a story about our lives, right? So she wrote her story, you wrote your story,
Yes.
From food stamps to favor, but all of us have these struggles of where we start, and then we have to move through those to get to where we are ultimately supposed to be. And so if you're not familiar with the hero's journey, it's actually a literary concept, I guess, or structure of book writings that you've probably read before, like anything dealing with Hercules, or if you watch Marvel, like I do every time it comes out, right? So you have this call, right? How many of us have heard the call? If you're watching today and you've heard a calling, and what a calling is that little nagging voice that says, I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing it. Doesn't stop. I'm supposed to be doing this. And then you try to ignore it. You ignore it, you ignore it. Some of us still ignoring it, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of the first part of it, is that calling. And then it is the crossing of the threshold. So meeting a mentor, crossing the threshold, then you're going to go through those trials and those failures. And some of us get trapped up there, right? So we stopped ignoring it, and we have the trials and the failures, but that's where you grow new skills. That's where you grow strength. That's where you get everything you need to ultimately get to the end of your journey. And that's when you're a changed person.
Yes.
And so Kandra has like mapped all of this out. So I want to ask you, Kandra, how do you define hero? Because I know we think of capes and we think of flying and superpowers. How do you define hero?
So I typically would have on a cape because, with my nonprofit organization, Kids in Capes, I wear a cape. But I think as I've gotten older, I define hero as how we choose to save ourselves first, because you can't save anyone else until you first save you. And so the characteristics of a hero for me is there's a part of this that has to be selfless, because you have to tap into your strength, tap into your history, tap into your family, things that you were born into, that you are able to confront. So when I think of, how I define a hero, first thing is, making sure I'm courageous enough to face the things that sometimes, I was born into. I couldn't help that I was born into poverty. I could not help that I was abused. I didn't have the language. So in that, and looking at, as life has evolved, just like you said, as you go through the twists and turns, the ins and outs, it's also being brave enough or courageous enough to know that, ask yourself, am I showing up in the best version of myself? And what parts of my heart, what parts of my emotions, what part of my mental health are not, or are actually, or maybe in shambles because of trauma. And so for me, a hero is showing up for myself first, assessing how well I am or how unhealthy I am, and looking at patterns in my life and cycles in my life that have been unhealthy. So for me, the hero is looking and assessing who I am so that I can better show up. I can't save anybody else until I look at that first.
No, that's such a good point. Because so often we're trying to save others and
Yeah.
we don't have our own stuff in order.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
we're drowning and we're
Yes.
trying to save others.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? What do you do? Because you can't put forth your best effort as you're trying to save everyone else because you're also drowning.
Yeah, that's like codependency. It's such a great distraction. Some of us can only function if we're saving somebody else, and it's like we're sacrificing who we are. And I feel that's equally toxic, because sometimes we have to get to a place where we can sit with ourselves and sit with our issues and really assess who we are and how we're showing up as moms, how we're showing up, as daughters and parents and professionals, and making sure that we're well and we're healthy to give ourselves to invest in ourselves, to make sure that we are like our best version of who we are, no matter where we are. Like if we're showing up in church or if we're showing up at work, that we have not sacrificed ourselves, but we are willing to sacrifice the time that we need and the effort we need to be well.
And do you feel like sometimes we take pride in that? Like, yeah, I was struggling. I couldn't barely make it, but I took care of this person, this person, this person. It's almost filling a hole.
I feel that when you look at it, particularly if you look at Black women, this is what we do. We show up, we get it done. A lot of times it is not easy, but we get it done. But what is it costing us at the end of the day? How are we really adding value back to ourselves? I was at Essence last year, and I heard one of the empowerment speakers say it's equally toxic to show up, always show up when things are well and you're strong. And so we have to rethink the way that we show up. It's okay, and build a community where we can actually be vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I'm not doing that today. I'm going to do things differently. And it's okay.
I like that. So along that same line, we can almost make ourselves the victims or villains. So I'm not saying, believe me, I know we have all been victimized by something, right? But we don't have to be victims
Right.
for the rest of our lives. Or we become the villain because we become so resentful for everything we're doing, trying to play hero, right? Rather than recognizing where our power is actually most impactful. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of times we just have to understand that as we evolve in life, that we have to be comfortable with our own journeys. I think sometimes we can look at others, and I feel in the world that we're in, it's easy to kind of get distracted by what others are doing and the noise of the world. But we have to understand that we are enough, right where we are. And as we begin to unpack, those things that, that can either vilify us, or we feel that we have to save the day. As we unpack those things, we have to be able to say, this is not mine to own. I think sometimes we just got to just say, I don't have to own this. I really am not, just because it may have run in my family and this is the way we've always done it. It's not a matter of vilifying an individual or being the hero in it, but just assessing it for what it is. And we can choose to say, no, thank you. That's a full response, or not at this time. And put those boundaries in place, and you become your own hero.
So on top of that, how do we move? So how would you suggest someone move if they're feeling like a victim, if they're feeling like a villain, if they're just feeling not useful, unfulfilled, any of those feelings? How do you suggest they move from that feeling to recognizing how they can be a hero in their own lives and others?
Yeah. I think that starts with kind of assessing, where we are. I think, post COVID, we all kind of struggle with some isolation,
Mm-hmm.
but have you always been isolated? Um, God didn't intend for us to be alone. There are women out there, and there are relationships and mentors, and we have to almost be vulnerable enough to ask. I think about, the first time I got a job with the newspaper, and I just shared this the other day. I reached out to them and told them I just graduated from college, and the first thing I noticed was none of the reporters looked like me. And I
Mm.
was in a community that had a New York Times on newspaper. So it takes a level of vulnerability. Like, you really have to be willing to assess yourself in the honesty of
Mm-hmm.
what things are. Um, and then say, okay, this is where I'm going to start building my village. And there are people you're gonna have backdoor friends and front door friends, right? I prefer the backdoor friends because if I build honestly, I can let these people see me not always put together.
Yeah.
These are the people I'm not going to always pronounce my words right when I'm with them. But these are the people who are going to also, I want this level of honesty from them. If
Mm-hmm.
I can share my heart with you or someone, I want you to tell me, well, let's look at it this way. But we always have to make sure that the folks that we are connected to are individuals who also have our best interest at heart.
Yeah. And one term that you hear a lot in corporate, right, is especially when you're trying to get a promotion, is a champion. A champion. You want
Yes.
someone to champion you. And that's how I feel about my friends and the people I want around me, right? I want them to be my champions as I want to be a champion for them. And
Yes.
so sometimes we're looking for someone to do everything for us. Your hero could be the person right next to you. I said,
Yes.
my brother, look, my sister is on here right now. I'm going to put her comment up. They come and watch the show
Yes.
every day. That is, to me, I'm
Yes.
like, oh, that's my hero, right?
Yes.
So
So
um
awesome.
you don't have to go
Mm-mm.
all out to
Mm-mm.
play a role that is
Mhm.
powerful. And I'll give you a
Yes.
situation. Like when my mom passed, I remember one day I can't remember what it was. It might have been around her birthday or something. And I remember just crying in every parking lot I went to. And that day I went to Michael's,
Mhm.
the craft store. I was crying on my way in, like sit in the car, get myself together. The cashier was so nice and friendly and lovely. I went to Publix crying and went into
Mhm.
Publix. The people were so
Yes.
nice and they literally like
Mhm.
saved my day. And so
Yes.
it can seem like you're not impacting people, but you have so much more power than you even
Absolutely.
realize that impact. They don't know this. This happened years
Yes.
ago. And I still
Wow.
remember those moments.
Wow. And to your point, when we think of like the word hero, we think of something that's huge.
Mhm.
Like you said,
Magical.
it's got to be something big. But
Mhm.
kindness is a superpower.
Mhm.
Loving your neighbor like you would want somebody to love you and your children is a superpower. My mom, the way she, see about people in her community, that's a superpower.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to come with lights and a mic for it to be special to someone.
Yeah.
And so tapping into whatever that superpower is, whether it's serving, a hot plate to somebody, and my mom did a whole lot of that with homeless people.
Mhm.
And however, whatever our hands find to do, as long as we're making impact, I feel that is our superpower.
Yeah, and I find in my coaching practice, I ask, okay, what are your strengths, right? What are you good at? And people instantly say, oh, that's hard. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Or they'll
Yeah.
say, well, I'm not good at this. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that ain't what I asked you. That ain't what I asked you. I asked you what you were good at. And so
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we talk about superpowers, when we talk about strengths,
Mm-hmm.
we are so focused. They said on, I think on the phone, right? You had the emojis. And I think
Mm-hmm.
at one point, I don't know if it's still true, there were more negative emojis than
Wow.
there were positive feeling emojis, like the faces.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
because we have been trained to like hone
Mm-hmm.
in like right there on that problem, right?
Yes.
This is the issue. This is what's missing. This is what I don't have. This is why I'm insignificant.
Yes.
This is why I'm not worth
Yes.
it. I'm not enough. When you have
Yes.
everyone has something. It may not
Yes.
be, I may not be able to sing like Beyonce,
That's
right?
it. That's it.
I may be able to,
Yeah.
y'all don't know. But
Right.
but but everybody has the ability to
Right.
do something very well, to be
Mm-hmm.
great in some way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? And I think about how I enjoy writing and how my
Mm-hmm.
friends at that time, like, what you gonna do with a degree in communications? And now I'm looking like open a publishing agency, help authors become Amazon bestsellers, offer consulting, write speeches. And so when you say everybody has something, it's true. It's whether we've tapped into it, and have
Mm-hmm.
folks around us, champions that help us to realize the value that we bring,
Mm-hmm.
to our families and our communities, wherever we're doing service work, is the value we bring. Just showing up, there's some value in that.
Yeah.
And so just being able to tap in that, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be on a stage and have an audience. Just do the work and that'll come. And
Yeah.
sometimes even then you don't want that. It just that's what happened with me. But it'll come because it's inside of us. We all have it.
And you hit on something that made me think when you said, people said, what are you going to do with this degree? Your calling wasn't for everybody else.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't for
Mm-mm.
everybody else. It was for you,
That's
right? And
it.
so while others are questioning, well, why you don't do this? Why you don't do that?
Yeah.
Da-da-da. And sometimes they're doing it out of love. So I'm not one to say just be like, they hate
Yeah.
us. Sometimes they're doing it out of love,
Yeah.
but you really have to understand, like, okay, well, this was meant for me, and I just got
Yes.
to move forward with what I know.
Yeah. And I don't know if I told you this, but when I was I think I was in fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't quite know my 12 timetables. I wasn't responding quickly. So, in an act of humiliation, my fifth grade teacher sent me to her husband's fourth grade class to learn my 12 timetables. And so through that, I remember the shaming. It was an attempt to shame me.
Mm-hmm.
I just did not like math anymore. So I immediately clung on to like reading and spellings. I became very
Mm-hmm.
strong in spelling and English and writing. And that became like a superpower for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my friends begin to question, what are you going to do with X, Y, and Z? I was like, it don't matter because I love what I'm doing. And that's exactly what happened. Doors literally began to just fling open
Do
because
you
I found
feel
my passion.
do you feel like when she did that, that you may have internalized, like, I'm not good at math, so I'm just going to accept that?
I did. I did. And then you started hearing things like people would say, so which subject are you good at? And
Mm-hmm.
like you couldn't be good in more than one. Like why it had to be math or English. So when
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it, I was like, okay, this is gonna be for me. And you know what? It just happened to work out that way.
Mm.
Because if you wanted to shame me about not knowing my all of my 12s to do long division, so be it. So here I am now in love with my passion and my purpose that I have with advertising, marketing, social media management, content creation.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't trade it.
Awesome. Let's look at some of the comments. Russell, that's my brother. Every
Right.
day I compliment passersby and say, have a great day. Yeah, because you never
Yes.
know. That person could be having the worst day ever. And
Listen,
you say that and they're like, oh, thank you. Right?
the hello is the superpower.
Mm-hmm. Being patient with people is,
Yes.
oh, let me tell you, being patient is a superpower because I
Yes.
don't know about that one.
Yes.
Look, for myself, I don't think I have a lot of
I
patience.
love that.
Oh, that is
You are
good. And then
the
my
uplift.
calling is to uplift. Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
everyone can be called to uplift, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone can be
Yes.
called to uplift.
As an encourager.
So when we talk about you internalizing that, that's why it's so important for
Mhm.
us to tell our most powerful stories, because
Yes.
often we're walking around and we're telling our victim story, we're repeating our villain story, we're repeating
Yes.
our not good enough story versus
Hmm.
telling ourselves our most powerful story. And so
Yes.
it's a matter of reframing,
That's
right?
it. That's
It's a
exactly right.
matter of reframing. So looking at that bad situation and moving past it, right? So I'm gonna say you have the bad situation, then move right past it, and
Yes.
then there go your most powerful story because you made it.
That's it. That's it. Because, truth is, if I would have stopped living my life and just wallowed in being an abused child, um, you don't heal. And I have the rest. That was 7. Now I'm 40 something.
Yeah.
If I would have stopped living there, imagine how my life would be. And so, these situations, when they happen like that, you not only do you have to move forward, but
Mhm.
it's vital so that somebody else can be uplifted. So
Yeah.
somebody else will know that they can make it. And
Mhm.
sometimes our darkest stories, most ugliest stories, become the hope that the other person needs, the
Yeah.
uplift that they need to be the proof that it is possible.
How many of us are still living when we were 7, 8, 9?
Listen,
Look,
don't unpack it.
unpack it,
Yeah.
because I know this personal testimony.
Mm.
I used to be very like I could hold a grudge, right? It's someone's been holding grudges for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Like
gotta
we're
let
gonna
that
lose some, like we're gonna lose some if we let it go.
let it go. That 40-year-old grudge, you gotta let it go. You gotta
Yeah.
let it go. And the way you let it go is recognizing that whoever did you wrong,
Come
it
on.
ain't nothing you're gonna be able to do now to change them. So
Nothing.
it's just nothing. And you know that you did the best you could at that
Yeah.
time. You
That's it.
can't change them. And you
Mm-mm.
set boundaries for people, right?
That's
Set
it.
boundaries.
Yeah.
I won't accept this behavior anymore. I learned
Absolutely.
this from this action. I won't have these people around
Hmm.
me. But
Yes.
you gotta move past it because at the end of the day, it's probably hurting you more than it's hurting them.
It is. And when you say set those boundaries, one thing that I feel, being a survivor, a conqueror of childhood sexual abuse, you if you don't heal, because what happened with me, I ended up being a victim of childhood sexual abuse, and then I married into domestic violence the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So it continues until you heal. There will be these cycles that you'll continue to repeat, and it will be adverse things that will continue to happen until you reconcile in that place that you are not going to park and unpack and stay there. The purpose is to park, unpack, heal, so that you can move forward. Put it in dry so you can move
And let
forward.
me tell you, it worked just like inheritance, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of
That's right.
times it will pass right on to the next generation
That's
because
right.
we don't heal and we've been taught not to talk about and address stuff. You keep it
Yes.
private. It
Mhm.
is. I used to watch Yola. I don't know if you've ever watched Yola. And
Yes.
she would have she would have a parent and a child on,
Mhm.
and they would not have known each other's story. And that daughter, I remember one specific was a
Yeah.
daughter who was abused, and she
Yes.
said,
I
I was
remember it.
abused at this age. And her mom said, wait, I was abused at that same age.
Yep. Mhm.
So we got to start unpacking it. We got to start
Yes.
talking about it,
Mhm.
even though it's uncomfortable. Because
That's it.
that's where real healing happens, right? When we can be
Yes.
open about it,
Mhm.
that's when it's healed.
Yes. And as you're talking about those things that are uncomfortable, you're really setting a new standard. You're really setting new core values in your family, like personal core values. Like as a victim of childhood sexual abuse and now a conqueror, there's just certain things, like you said, I just won't tolerate.
Yeah.
Respect of myself and respect of others, and consideration and kindness and integrity. Those things matter to me. And
Mhm.
so that is how I live my life now. And so as we continue to evolve, we begin to set new principles and standards in our own lives.
That is awesome. This has been an amazing conversation. Before we end, I want you to tell us about, in honor of Women's History Month, what woman has greatly impacted your life and where you are today?
I have to say, my mom and my grandmother, those two women are just, when you look back at their strength and their courage, and for a period, I was a single mom and my mom did it with 5. And I'm like, man, I'm two, listen. And we always had something to eat. We always had lights and we always honored God. And so for that, I'm just so grateful. And they all had high standards of us to
Mhm.
graduate high school and go on and do great things in life. So I honor my mom, I honor my grandmother, and of course tonight I have to honor you. for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last comment of the night. My goal is to advocate for those who can't do it for themselves.
Yes, I
Yes,
love
that is
it.
awesome. And of
Hmm.
course, Darlene and Glad. Yes, Darlene and Glad. My
Yes.
mama and my grandmama. Oh
Yes.
Lord, let me and my bonus grandmama. What's
Yes.
hot? Let me tell you, if they didn't teach me nothing else, it was how to be strong. It's probably a problem for everybody else. Be
Yes.
strong
It's
willed.
true.
Oh, Jesus,
Yes.
those are strong willed women. All right,
Yes.
I invite everyone to, I'm putting Kandra's website, and then Kandra, tell us about your services.
Yes. So with Kids in Capes, I help to, which is a nonprofit, sustainable nonprofit organization that is designed to help prevent and raise awareness of childhood sexual abuse, bullying, and illegal drug use in children early on. You can find the website there, also on social media, but Kids in Capes, incinc.org is the website. I also am the co CEO of More Than Expected Publishing, which is mtepublishing.org is our website there. We actually help clients write their books and actually publish them at industry standard and with worldwide distribution. Many of our authors are Amazon bestsellers, and we love what we do. So the services we offer there are ghostwriting as well as writing coaching. And what else do I have on there? And KandraAlbury.org is my kind of general open to the public website. You can find more information about me there. I'm available for speaking engagements, empowerment for kids, whatever it is that you need, I can kind of serve. I'm here. That is my superpower. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Next week, we're going to come back with, it's going to be a fun topic. We're
Yeah.
going to be talking crazy, sexy, cool, the new way to age. Okay. That's
Okay.
what we're talking about next week. So be sure to join us. Hopefully, Facebook works next week.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you so much. And you guys, we will see you next time.
Awesome.
Bye.
Good night.